Hi guys and welcome to Boku Academia Week Day 4. Today we'll have a theory slash discussion thingy. It leans more towards discussion because I don't have a definitive answer. I have more like multiple answers that could be a possibility, and it could also be seen like as some sort of theory on a future arc. Although I do think that that the thing I'm going to be talking about could expand over a couple of arcs instead of having like one main arc. But let's just talk about what I'm actually gonna make a video about here. So I wanted to talk about the society of the Boku no Hero Academia universe, or like more specifically just Japan, because obviously we don't really know much about any other nation. Although I do think it would be really funny or interesting if we could go abroad and just see how other nations functions. Because the thing about this universe is that quirks haven't always been around. They've been around for like 4 or 5 generations, so about like 80, 100 years, maybe a little bit longer depending on like if you count from the very first thing. I think in the anime it's at 80 years, but I couldn't find like a definitive actually when the first quirk appeared, like when that was, so I'm just gonna guess around 100 years because it seems like it hasn't been that long. But 100 years isn't a lot to form a society based around quirks, especially because it's not everyone who has quirks. The quirks are very different, and when quirks first started appearing, they would have been much rarer. And when you have very few individuals who have, let's call them superpowers, you just have like specific set of rules for those people, and you can make rules that apply to those individual powers. But when you then suddenly have 100, 1,000, 10,000, a million people across the world with a quirk, and the quirks vary from person to person, like no two people, or maybe no three people, who knows, have the same type of quirk. It's hard to make rules around that, because obviously if everyone was just allowed to use their quirk freely, there would be a lot of chaos, because some quirks are disasters. Like if Bakugo just went around and exploded everything in sight, like that probably wouldn't work well for society. But the thing that's interesting about the society that Japan has like kind of developed here is that they've made a world that has like they made a society based on like very few rules that like they are very, I want to call them elaborate, but like they have, I'm gonna read a little bit to you a little bit. Gonna read a little bit. I'm gonna read it to you in a little bit, but they have like one or two rules that just is about everything quirk related, which is not a good way to like keep everything in check. And then they also have this, they have All Might as a symbol of peace, which is like, this is our magic spell to keeping crime rates down, which obviously as soon as All Might falls, crime rates, they just go up. And we're gonna talk about a little bit later what the countermeasures that they take, and what that might mean for the future of the series, and why the exact countermeasures they took might not be really good. But what I'm going to talk about first is just the world that we live in. So I'm going to read from, what volume is this? Volume 9. This one. The good thing about owning the volumes, I don't know where you get your like chapters, but if you get them just through Shonen Jump, I don't think you get like the stuff in between, like the little in between pages, which in Boku no Hero Academia mostly has character profiles, but sometimes they have like really interesting tidbits of like the world, or like a story concept, or something that he took out of the story, or something really interesting. So I really recommend buying the volumes, not only to support the series obviously, but just to get these little tidbits, which are really interesting. I'm gonna read, it's a long thing. I'm gonna read this entire thing for you, but just in case you don't know this, I found this very interesting when I read this the first time. So this is basically the rule that Japan has concerning quirks. Harming another one with one's quirk is fundamentally against the rules, which is why the use of quirks in public places is forbidden by law. Self-defense is an exception. If someone is attacked first, they are allowed to defend themselves. It's different than ordinary self-defense though, which might involve punching someone or pinning them down. This is because quirks vary so much in nature, because some quirks are capable of killing in an instant. Attempting to account for every given quirk in the law books is essentially impossible due to the varying degrees of harm that different quirks can cause. I talked about this. This is what led to the current heavy-handed law, which states no one may use his or her quirk to harm another. However, the law that forbids quirks use in public spaces is viewed much like the old rule that states bicycles are not to be ridden on sidewalks. That is to say, if Izuku's mother dropped her cell phone on the ground outside, she might use her telekinetic quirk to draw it back to her. Strictly speaking, this would constitute a violation of the rules, but few people will actually give her any guff about it. Naturally, a stricter approach would be taken with quirks that could actually harm bystanders. Bystanders, oh my god. Bakugo would probably get in trouble for using his explosions to boost himself down the street. As for the battles, okay, this is not important. I'm gonna leave this little bit of information in the description so you can read it for yourself. But basically this states, like, this is all the rules, more or less, that are about quirks, and it's basically just, don't use it in public unless you have to defend yourself. But if you kind of just use it in, like, a little bit of, just a tiny bit, and it doesn't harm anyone, it's kind of okay, even though it's not okay. I'm just gonna go to my notes here, because I have a system, or like, a thing here. Okay, so you have those, like, very loose terms, and we also know that, like, under no circumstance can you use your quirk unless you have a hero license. Like, that's the only way to use your quirk, with a hero license, which is kind of ridiculous, because who would go through the entire trouble of getting a hero license just to be able to use your quirk? Like, you could have, let's say you had Uraraka's quirk, and you worked like her parents at a construction site. It would be so useful for them to just have Uraraka's quirk, but they can't do it unless she gets her hero license, which is kind of like part of the reason why she wants to get it, which is ridiculous. It's such a huge, like way to go around the entire thing. Like, I want to use it for this thing, but to do it I have to become a hero first. Like, that doesn't really make any sense, because Uraraka doesn't actually aspire to be a hero. She aspires to help her parents by making money and getting her hero license. So, like, yeah. So their system is kind of, like, iffy. They don't really have that well of a rule set, and it just seems a bit shaky, especially with the Fall of All Might, where it's like, okay, now he fell, crime rates went up, what do we do now? Their genius idea to handling the Fall of All Might was let's produce more heroes. So when the exam came around to getting their hero license, or the partial hero license, like, there are some restrictions upon it, they decided, okay, let's make this test so that more people can pass, which is kind of akin to lowering the bar a little bit. But the question here is, like, if you lower the bar, obviously you make it easier to get your hero license, but then does that mean that the people who wouldn't have gotten their hero license under the previous circumstances, would that then mean they aren't really ready to go out in the field and be heroes? Because this is very different from the week they did, like, where Deku was with Gran Torino, or Uraraka was with the battle gun hero thing. Like, it's very, very different from that, because we know that with the internships that Deku, Uraraka, Tsuyu, Kirishima are doing, they're in legitimate, real danger. Like, fucking Night Eye was like, yeah, I saw a vision of Deku dying here. So, this isn't a joke. They're sending literally 15, 16-year-old kids out to basically just die at the hands of really strong criminals. And it's not to say that their solution was entirely wrong, because obviously when you lose, like, a big person in the security system, if you can't find a person that's equally as strong, you have to, like, mold a person that's equally strong by using more people. But taking 15, 16-year-olds is probably not the way to do it. So, yes. This is one of the major problems I have with the society that it's built, or the major problems I have with the society and how it's built surrounding heroes and surrounding quirks, because they don't have a clear set of rules. They have the don't use it in public, only use it for self-defense. You are not allowed to use your quirk unless you get a hero license. And their response to dealing with the Fall of All Might was, let's send 16-year-olds out to deal with the freaking Yakuza. I mean, yeah, it makes for an interesting story arc, but I mean, if it weren't our main characters, would they really survive that? I mean, imagine if they sent the people of Class B, not to say anything bad about them, but they don't really have the experiences of Class A. They would probably not have survived that, or maybe not have gotten anywhere. I mean, kind of depends on how far they got, right? So this discussion is basically gonna be talking about the solutions to this problem, and like kind of talk about where the story could go in terms of this exact problem, because I do think it's gonna be relevant, since we, especially in recent arcs, like before and after, and in like an arc, we've had like discussions about where society is headed. Like obviously before the exam arc, we had that like 3 pages of like a panel talking about, oh, what should we do in response to the fall of All Might, blah 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 blah. So we had a few things like that a lot recently, especially because Communal Ward was like a big thing. Okay. Let me just, okay. So one of the first things I mentioned was obviously it's stupid to not allow people to use their quirks only if they have a hero license. I don't know if I said that correctly, but you know what I mean. So I think there should be some way for people to be able to use their quirks, because we know from various things that they do register your quirk. So when you get your quirk, you get it registered somewhere. They have a separate one in UA so that they can make your costume and stuff like that, but you can register like at the government, I assume, because we know that when people have like their crime things, they're like, and we registered this quirk and blah blah blah. So we know that people register quirk unless they're outside of the system. Which, again, there should be a way to like formally request, okay, I got this quirk and I wanted to use it for this, and then you could be allowed to only use it for this. So Uraraka could be like, she could fill out a form, and she could be like, this is what I want to request to use my quirk for, I won't use it anywhere outside the construction site, and she could like have a test taken, or give like something, like, you know how some countries who have like very strict gun laws, like here in Denmark, you have to go through like various things and checkups every 5 years or something to own a gun, because obviously guns kill people and guns are not good. Or guns can be very bad if you use it badly, so it's like there are strict rules about owning guns and using guns. And it obviously it's not quite the same, because again, I'm going back to Denmark's gun laws, like we have a law that says you keep your gun in one place and it has to be locked up, and then you keep the bullets in another place and it has to be locked up. So you just can't like put it together and start shooting people. Obviously you can't do it with quirks, because quirks is a part of a human being, which is also why I think people should be allowed to use them. Like imagine if you were in this world, but the only way for you to be able to use your quirk somewhat freely is if you're a hero with a hero license. I mean, that would actually suck. Like, imagine if you had the power to fly. It would be really sad that you're not allowed to use that power to go to school, or go to work, or just go somewhere. Like, you can fly, but you're not allowed to do so because you're not allowed to use your quirk in public. That's a sad reality. I mean, and there are so many things that quirks would be good for. Like, again, with the construction site, which is my best example, they could probably get so much more done. They could save money on, like, big cranes and stuff if Uraraka could just, like, float things the way that they should go. Because, yeah, it would help society a lot. And yeah, maybe like a few jobs would get lost, but there would probably in the process be made more jobs that help control people with various quirks. You could have more people in the police force, you could have more people become heroes to help control crime and stuff like that. So I mean, and obviously like making jobs and losing jobs is probably not a big issue in this world, because I don't think we're gonna go into that much of the politics, but still, it's like maybe it's a concern, who knows. Right, my second point is kind of like, again, I don't know what I'm just gonna talk about it. I don't know where to put this, but again, as I said, being able to allowing people to use their quirks freely, I think would possibly also lower crime, because I think having quirks probably makes everything more chaotic, because when you have a quirk, it's like, oh, I have power, I want to use it, but I'm not allowed, so I am automatically a criminal if I use it in public. If you're able to use your quirk more freely, if there were little looser rules, like, again, you're just not allowed to harm people with these, but it could potentially lower crime rates, or lower the possibility of someone turning criminal. And as well, if you allow people to use quirks for various jobs, it would possibly make people with quirks, like specific quirks, they'd be like, okay, I have an easier time of getting a job because I know there are people who are there are jobs for people like me, like my quirk is desirable. And again, because as a person in society, if you have the choice between being a criminal and living on the right side of the law, you would probably prefer to live on the right side of the law if like your lifestyles are similar, like you make money by stealing or you make money by having a proper job, which you might even like a lot. I mean, you would probably choose this because then you're not wanted, you're not going to prison, or you don't have to pay a weird fine or something like that. Right, but that was the most political I think I'm gonna go into this, because the last 2 points on this is the heroes, because I talked about, again, sending 16-year-olds a mission to defeat the Yakuza. That's just not, I don't think that's optimal. It's not gonna work out this well, and we don't even know how well this might work out. Like, Mario, he lost his freaking quirk, man. I mean, this isn't a story of success, at least not yet, especially if they lose area. Or I don't think this arc is gonna end happy. I'm just gonna say it like that, and I'm not gonna say it's the UA students' fault for being 15. I'm just saying, or 16 as they are now, I think. But still, any other 16-year-old probably wouldn't have done as well as they would have. Like, there goes the main character and he has one for all. Like, not every student has that power. Not every student is the main character of the story. Which is why it's iffy. But one of my solutions to that could be training heroes to work in teams, because we know that heroes have their hero agencies. We know that heroes sometimes are forced to work together, and we know that heroes have sidekicks. However, all of those things don't really they aren't really the same thing as working together as an equal with another hero. You don't have a sidekick, or having a sidekick help you and assist you is not the same as working together with a hero, and working together with heroes of other agencies is not the same as working together with a hero you always work with and therefore like know in and out. Like, obviously the students of 1A would work much better together than they would if they were just paired with a random student of class 1B, because they don't know that person that well, so they don't know what they're useful for. So having them work together in teams is like one good solution. Still think they should be a little older, but I mean, experience and all that stuff. And the whole, I mean, I'm not saying that the sidekick thing is bad, I'm just saying maybe upgrade a sidekick to something like an equal, and then have your sidekicks work together in teams. They probably have that, I don't know. But training heroes to work in teams rather than individuals, so you don't have like, oh, you have the hero All Might, you have the hero Endeavor, you have the hero, why am I losing all my names here? I don't know. But you have, oh, the heroes, the Wonder Duo, oh, you have the heroes, I don't know what to think of, you know, something like that. So you have multiple good heroes working together to then create that symbol of peace in a team rather than in an individual, which I think would be better. I think that would work better, because that also, when you have an individual, it's hard for someone to replace that, because we don't know what the predecessors of One for All, what their status was in the hero world. We just know that with each generation, they get stronger, which means that All Might was obviously before the strongest. So we don't know, was he just the first one because he got that level of strength, but he's just the first one to have like that level of, he is the symbol of peace? Or were the others also deemed like very great heroes? We know that the first couple of people probably wouldn't have, but like All Might's predecessor, we almost know nothing about her except that, oh my god, she's related to Shigaraki. Oh dang. But yeah, we don't know anything about that, but still they made the society based around All Might, and their society collapsed because All Might, I don't want to, how do we say that? All Might lost, was defeated, no longer has his power, is no longer a thing. But but having duos or trios or groups take that place as a symbol of peace, if they still want to have that kind of format, is better, because it's easier for a group to replace another group. Obviously, they're still like a thing, but it's easier to find people that do that, because it's like, oh, there are more people coming together to become a great thing, rather than just one individual that no one can ever hope to defeat ever. And then lastly, the last thing we're going to talk about, this is already 20 minutes, how even, we're going to talk about the Stain factor. Because we know, obviously, Stain had this ideal, and he criticized heroes for not being heroes because of the ideals that are said to be heroes, like heroes that just save people and do it not for selfish reasons, but for the goal of helping others. Stain eliminates / kills all the people who don't live up to that standard, which is pretty much everyone except All Might. And even though obviously what he did was wrong, a lot of people recognize that, yeah, maybe he was onto something. Maybe the heroes of the day aren't really what heroes are supposed to do, which I find really interesting when we go back to the first chapter, because the first chapter we have, damn, what is her name? Giant Girl? What's her name? Mount Lady, right? I was like, because the first time she's introduced, she's like, look at her. She's doing it for money and fame, and not for actually being a hero. Which is an interesting way to do it, because then you have about 5 arcs later, you have Stain coming in and being like, yeah, this is not how heroes should be. And then, where is that? Too many volumes here. Horikoshi, that is his name, right? Yeah. He made a little comment saying, Stain may have been beaten, but he's a character who's going to have a long and lasting effect on the world within the story. Obviously meaning that the ideals that he set forth are gonna be explored, they're gonna be acknowledged, and they're probably gonna do something about the sentiment that people are probably starting to feel more and more, because, again, the Stain effect was just, people were like, oh, he's so cool even though he was a villain, oh my god, and the video about him talking about his ideals was shared over and over again, even though the government kept trying to take it down. And even Deku was like to Shigaraki, like, I didn't agree with what he did, but I can understand where he's coming from. Unlike you, where I don't understand anything about you, and I don't agree with you, and I really can't understand where you're coming from. So there's this sentiment with Stain, where, again, even though he might not reappear, his ideals definitely will. Where did my notes go? So I think all of these factors will, at some point, make their way into the story in a way that the society and literally the government will have to change the way they do things when it comes to quirks and heroes, because there's definitely something wrong in the system. And I think even Shigaraki, I was about to call him Stain. Shigaraki even said, like, look at all these people around here. When he talked to Deku in the mall, he was like, they all have these great quirks, but no one uses them, and no one expects anything to ever happen. Like, at any point, someone here with a great quirk could just burst out and do whatever, but they all expect nothing will happen. But then again, when something happens, like, none of these people have learned how to use their quirks to defend themselves, even though maybe they could. Again, a person who could fly, maybe they haven't, they could maybe fly off by themselves, but let's say they had trained that quirk, they could probably, like, take a couple of children and then fly away and save more people. And even though it's just one act of kindness or one act of heroism, this person doesn't have to be a hero to do that. They just help people escape because they had the power to do so. But yeah. This was a bit of a messy discussion. But it's something that I've thought about a lot. That the system is definitely a little bit iffy, unbalanced, not clear, and there's been so much focus on it, like, or not a lot of focus, but just, again, there are these instances where they focus solely on how the society works and how it's kind of flawed, because they have to keep changing and change the attitudes towards it, so it has to change at some point. And I'm not entirely sure how much it's gonna affect, like, one arc or more arcs. Like, are we gonna have an entire arc dedicated to, like, the revolution of Japan or something like that, or are we gonna have this steady change where every time something pops up they're like, okay, maybe we should change this rule, like, one of the kids die. Let's say one of the kids died, on one of these excursions. Like, they got their hero license and maybe they shouldn't have gotten their hero license, and then they die. And then they're like, damn, we probably shouldn't have changed this exam and how it's conducted, because we just gave a person a hero license even though he shouldn't have gotten it. Like, imagine if Deku had actually died in this mission. There were only 4 or 5 people or something who did not get their license out of all those 100 people, or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's what I have to talk about. I really hope that was everything. It's just an interesting topic, I feel like. Feel free to leave your opinions, or if you have anything more that has caught your attention with the way society works, like something that's weird or something you think should be fixed and something you think that could impact the story, and how do you think it will affect our main characters, because I definitely think that something like an accident could happen because the government is trying to produce heroes quicker because of the fall of All Might. And I think there might be an accident happening there. I don't know to what extent, if someone's gonna die, if something's just gonna lose a leg. I don't know. And it might not even be from Class A, it could be a Class B student, it could be, if they're in the second year, it could be another first year student. We don't know. I don't know. But you can feel free to leave your thoughts about that in the comments below. And I think that is it. And again, this is just a little fun discussion because I've had this on my mind for a long time, and I feel like I wanted to maybe not as much share it with people, but more hear your thoughts as well. So I put all the things that I've thought about in this video, and then you can give your 2 cents about it. That's basically what I want. But yeah, you can leave a like, you can leave a comment, and you can subscribe. And until tomorrow, where we should hopefully have a chapter. Goodbye.